بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We've mentioned before that there were three reasons for these expeditions, for these detachments that the Prophet ﷺ used to send out of Medina to attack the caravans and to spread around Medina. One of these reasons was that the Prophet ﷺ wanted to threaten the trading routes between Mecca and the countries of Sham, which is Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. And the second reason was the Prophet ﷺ wanted to sign treaties with the adjacent tribes surrounding Medina. And this was for logistic reasons, because at the end of the day, he had to have his back covered and protected. And also, he would provide these tribes with protection himself, because he had more power than they did. But he had to have his back protected, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the third reason was for the Jews and the polytheists who did not accept Islam and who were at that time neutral. They did not determine whether to go against or with Islam. He had to show them the power and strength of the Muslims, so they themselves be intimidated from doing anything hostile against the Muslims. Of course, all of these reasons added value to the Muslims themselves, as it was a form of training for them, and they felt that this was part of preparation for a bigger and more important event to come.
So they were waiting for the specific point to attack Islam?
Well, the non-Muslims were always anticipating such a point. But the Muslims themselves, by sending these detachments, these squadrons, these expeditions, military expeditions, they were training themselves how to fight, how to pursue the enemy, and also they were doing this to give the message that we are not weak anymore. That era is over, and now we are on the offensive side.
Do you think, Shaykh, the orders, the attachment, comes from Allah or from the opinion of the Prophet ﷺ?
Well, what do you think, Muhammad?
I think, first of all, it's a revelation from Allah, because Prophet ﷺ would never speak or state any statements unless he has revelation from it. But at the same time, the situation is open for the others to give their suggestions, and the Prophet ﷺ would listen to as well, and would consider it, the good to take it or the bad to leave it.
Okay. In principle, the Prophet ﷺ does not utter anything except by the instruction of Allah. Now, he is always being revealed to, but the revelation he receives is the Quran, which we all have a copy of, and that has not been changed, not even one single letter, since the dawn of Islam. And then we have the prophetic saying or teaching, the hadith. And this also is a revelation from Allah the Almighty, being revealed to the Prophet ﷺ to say and to do things. Now there are other incidents where the Prophet ﷺ makes an ijtihad. He thinks of an opinion and he thinks that this is the right thing to do. If Allah Almighty accepts this, it goes on, and it is part of the revelation. If the Almighty does not accept it, He will reveal something to him, correcting the mistakes that took place. And this is evident in different incidents. For example, when the Prophet ﷺ was once calling a prominent polytheists, men who came from Mecca. And he was calling them to Islam. They were leaders of their tribes and they were pagans, idol worshippers. And as he was calling them to Islam, they were not accepting it. But he was trying his best to do so. One blind man came in, Ibn Maktoum, and he was asking the Prophet ﷺ to teach him about Islam. And the Prophet would ignore him. And Allah Azza wa Jal revealed verses of the Quran saying that the Prophet had a frown on his face and he gave his back to this blind man, though he should have given him all the attention because he's seeking the knowledge, while he should have given his back to those pagans who were rejecting his call. So these verses of the Quran, we still recite them until this moment, which Allah Almighty corrected the wrongdoing of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet did that out of good intention, yet it was not in accordance to what Allah wanted. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala corrected the Prophet ﷺ.
Does it mean that the Prophet ﷺ was in such position that he was so responsible about manners and attributes that even frowning, I believe that as he was a blind, that companion Abdullah ibn Maktoum, when he came to the Prophet ﷺ, I believe that obviously he couldn't see the frowning of the Prophet ﷺ, but even frowning in front of a blind man, which he would never even notice that frowning, is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is blaming his Prophet for. That does it mean that we are asked, all of us, to have such high good manners in deen, or is it like something high level, too high for the other Muslims to do?
Well, it is definitely it's much far greater than what we can do. But at the end, the Prophet ﷺ is the living example for us. Though Abdullah ibn Maktoum could not see the frown of the Prophet ﷺ, yet Allah the Almighty is teaching and instructing His Prophet to be of this high altitude of ethics and moral behavior, and not to even neglect this poor man who is seeking the guidance and the knowledge of Allah the Almighty. Now, coming back to the battles and the the military expeditions of the Prophet ﷺ, we remember that the Prophet came to Medina in the month of Rabi' al-Awwal, which is the 3rd month of the lunar year of the Islamic calendar. In Ramadan, which is not more than 6 months away, the first military expedition or the first squadron was sent out of Medina. The Prophet ﷺ chose his uncle, Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib, and he sent him in a squadron of 30 men. And he sent them, and all of these 30 men were from the Muhajirin. None of them was from the Ansar.
Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib was the leader. Huh?
Was the leader. And he was the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. And he was also the brother of the Prophet ﷺ, because they were breastfed by the same woman. Al-Muhajirun are those who migrated from Mecca to Medina, while the Ansar were the residents of Medina. And the pledge the people of Medina gave to the Prophet ﷺ was that if you come to us, we protect you as if we protect our own children and wives. But if you're out of Medina, then you're on your own.
That was the agreement between the Prophet.
This was the agreement between them. So the Prophet ﷺ sent his uncle, Hamza, and with these 30 warriors to intercept a caravan that was coming back from the countries of Sham. But they could not...
found it.
They found it, but
catch up with it.
They did not engage in fighting with it. Now, he had 30 men alongside with him, but the caravan had 300 men. So they were 10 times as big, and they were led by Abu Jahl, the head of the disbelief in Mecca, the head and the leader of the pagans of Mecca. So still they wanted to engage with them in battle. They wanted all to die at the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal. And Majdi ibn Amr al-Juhani, he was also a non-Muslim, but he was from the tribes that were surrounding Medina. He came in between them and made them all go without fighting, as sort of a truce. So he managed to mediate between them and separate them from fighting. But look at the bravery of the Muslims. There were 30 men against 300, and still they thought that they could manage this. Now this was in Ramadan.
Could that incident, could it indicate us that how they will stick with the orders of the Prophet ﷺ, that when they got an order from the Prophet to attack that caravan, and when they reached there, they found out that they were 10 times more, and it didn't stop them from doing what the Prophet ordered them?
This is true, and this was manifested in so many other battles and incidents, where they would fight an army that was 20 or 30 times bigger than their army. But this would not prevent them or stop them from complying with the instructions of the Prophet sallallaahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
The faith can do anything as long as the human has the faith. He can do whatever he wants.
Yes, if you can believe, then you can do wonders. I believe that we have a short break, so stay tuned, and inshallah we will be right back.
So this is an open invitation for everybody to recognize God and enjoy His blessings in this life and His mercy in this life and in the hereafter as well. Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Each name has a meaning. Each name signifies a nature of Allah the Almighty which no one shares or is compared to Allah in it.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. Now, as we mentioned, the squadron of Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib, may Allah be pleased with him, was in Ramadan on the first year of Hijrah. A month later, in Shawwal, the Prophet ﷺ set off Ubaidah ibn al-Harith ibn al-Muttalib in 80 of the Muhajirin, in 80 of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ from Mecca, who migrated to intercept a caravan composed of 200 men. Again, almost 4 times or 3 times as big. And they did not engage, but they had some arrows thrown here and there between them, close to the city of Rabigh in the western area of the peninsula. Though they had the superiority, though they had the number of fighters more than the Muslims, yet the mushrikun, the polytheists, they ran away. And why was that? Because they were afraid that there was an ambush here or there. They could not believe that only 80 men are coming to fight us. They definitely had something in store for us. So they decided that to leave and abandon the area, afraid of being ambushed. And again, this is one of the characteristics of Islam and the Muslims, that it's from Allah Azza wa Jal that people are afraid of their power. And in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he told us that Allah granted him victory by terrorizing those whom he is going to fight against. So people hear about his army coming and they are terrorized. They're afraid. They don't know what to do. And this will also come up with us when the Prophet ﷺ besieged the villages of the Jews and how they were afraid of that. Now, a while ago, in this same battle of Ubaidah ibn al-Harith, the polytheists, while running away, two of them joined the Muslims. And those were Al-Miqdad ibn Aswad and Utbah ibn Ghazwan. These two companions were Muslims in the very beginning, but they were not left alone. Their people would not allow them to go and migrate. So they were waiting for the right moment to flee their people and go to the Muslims. And that was the right moment. They were traders, so they were coming back. And the minute they found it possible for them to leave, they went and they joined the Muslims. A month later, in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, there was also this squadron that was known as Sariyat al-Kharrar. And this was led by Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. May Allah be pleased with him, one of the first companions to accept Islam in Mecca, and one of the most beloved companions of the Prophet ﷺ, a great warrior. And he was leading this group of men, 20 of them only. And they were also ordered by the Prophet ﷺ to intercept this caravan. And the minute they reached the place they were supposed to intercept it, they found that it already passed the previous day, so they missed that caravan too. In that first year of Hijrah, among the companions that died were the great companion of the Prophet ﷺ, Uthman ibn Mad'un, and also As'ad ibn Zurara, one of the first to accept the Islam from the people of Medina, and who was one of the captains and nuqaba who came and called people of Medina to accept Islam, and he set the foundation and the basis for them to accept Islam. Uthman ibn Mad'un was a great companion of the Prophet ﷺ. He died on that year. The Prophet ﷺ cried when this great man died, and he buried him himself, and he put a stone so that he would recognize his grave and know where to bury his own relatives, the Prophet ﷺ, next to his brother Uthman ibn Mad'un. Uthman ibn Mad'un was one of the great companions in the sense of worship, that he worshipped Allah a lot. He traveled to Abyssinia twice, and he migrated to Medina with the Prophet ﷺ. And at one stage he requested the permission of the Prophet ﷺ to sterilize himself, in the sense that to operate on himself so that he would not have any urge to females in marriage and so on, so that he would only devote his life to worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal. And this was not strange, because also Ali ibn Abi Talib, Abu Dharr al-Ghafari, they also requested the same thing, and the Prophet ﷺ forbid this completely, because this is un-Islamic, it's mutilating your body, and it's preventing you from doing something that is natural. Marriage is natural in Islam, and nowhere Islam tells us that you should be a monk, that you should not engage in enjoying the life and the things and the privileges that Allah Azza wa Jal has given you. Uthman ibn Mad'un was one of the great companions of the Prophet ﷺ who died in that year. It is also reported that one of the companions, females of the Prophet ﷺ, when Uthman ibn Mad'un died, she came and the Prophet came to visit this dead person because before burial, and he heard this companion say, "By Allah, may Allah have mercy on you, Aba Sa'ib, Uthman ibn Mad'un, because my testimony is that Allah has have had His mercy on you and that He has honored you. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how would you know that? How do you say something that you have no knowledge of? She said, I ask Allah Azza wa Jal for forgiveness. If Allah would not have mercy on this great companion, Uthman ibn Mad'un, whom we've seen his life and his migration and his great deeds, then who will Allah have mercy on? So the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, as far as I know, I wish for Uthman the very best, that Allah will have mercy on him. But it is me, myself, I don't know what Allah is going to do with me. And this is a lesson from the Prophet ﷺ to us, that we should not have any testimony, we should not testify for anyone living that he is in heaven or in hell. This is something that only Allah knows about. We hope, we wish that when Muslims die, that they go to paradise. But we cannot say that this particular individual is in paradise unless the Prophet told us that he is in paradise. And likewise, we cannot say that a non-Muslim is a particular individual, named so-and-so, is in hell. Because we do not know if he reverted to Islam seconds before he died. And this is something that Allah is going to deal with. We can generalize and say, all those who die Muslims will be in paradise, and all those who die not accepting Islam will go to hell. But we do not specify particular individuals. Going on, there was the first military expedition or ghazwa that the Prophet ﷺ participated in. And this ghazwa is called Ghazwat al-Abwa or Ghazwat Waddan. It has two names, Al-Abwa or Waddan. And this was on the second year of the Hijrah, in the month of Safar. The Prophet himself, sallallaahu alayhi wa sallam, went out with 70 of his companions. And again, they were all migrants. None of them were from Medina. And he went to intercept a caravan.
Do you think, Sheikh, why all the battles, all the small battles, the war is from the Muhajirin? Do you think why?
Well, all this, I've mentioned this earlier, that all of these, because of the treaty that he had with the people of Medina.
Yeah, the treatment between
that they would protect the Prophet ﷺ as long as he was in Medina. Once he's out of Medina, there is no agreement on that. And that is why he did not ask any of the people of Medina to accompany these military expeditions. On the contrary, it might have been a sort of an incentive for them to look up for. So they were eager to accompany the Prophet ﷺ, but he would never ask them to come out. So as if it's building up in themselves that we would like to join, we would like to participate. So when the right moment was right, they were asked to join the Prophet ﷺ, as we will come to that, inshallah, later on. So the Prophet ﷺ went out to intercept one of the caravans, but he missed it. So he took the opportunity and he signed a treaty with Amr ibn Makhshi al-Dumari from Bani Dumrah. And he was the leader of one of the tribes adjacent to Medina. He signed a treaty with him, and both parties honored this agreement to protect each other and not to aid and not to give help and support to any army coming to attack Medina and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the third month or the fourth month of the second year, there was the expedition of Buwabt. And this expedition, the Prophet ﷺ set out in 200 of his followers to pursue a caravan which was led by Umayyah ibn Khalaf. And this caravan was so huge, it had 2,500 camels and was protected only by 100 men. And Umayyah ibn Khalaf, we all know this tyrant. We all know this evil man. Umayyah ibn Khalaf was famous to torture
Companions.
which companion in particular?
Bilal.
Bilal.
Yeah.
He was well known to torture Bilal ibn Rabah. He was an Abyssinian slave, and he embraced Islam at the very beginning, reverted to Islam. And Umayyah ibn Khalaf would not swallow this easily. So he started torturing this man. He started to take him in shackles into the desert, in the heat of the desert, and put a heavy stone in his chest, and in that heat, and instruct him to associate others with Allah. And all what Bilal says, Ahadun Ahad. Umayyah ibn Khalaf, this evil man. Abu Bakr came and told him, till when you do this with this poor man? Why don't you sell him to me for 10 dirhams? He said, okay. And he bought him. And after he bought him, Umayyah told Abu Bakr, I've cheated you in this deal. If you'd given me 1 dirham, I would have bought it, given him to you. He said, Abu Bakr told him, in reply to him, said, well, I think I've cheated you, because if you've requested 100, I would have given it to you. This was Umayyah ibn Khalaf, and the Prophet ﷺ missed that caravan. I'm afraid that this is all the time we have for today's program. So inshallah, until we meet next time, fi amanillah, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.